Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This weekend is Father's Day on Sunday. So this is one of my father's favourite kind of recipes. It's a kind of sausage roll recipe. I've actually made it with beef, so I guess beef rolls for my ones. But yeah, you can use a variety of different things. And I would say, do take some time to do something for your dad this weekend, or to spend some time with him, as I'm sure he will appreciate that. Far more than any present that you give.
So I'm going to use a food processor for my puff pastry. You can buy ready rolled puff pastry. That doesn't taste quite as good, but will make this a lot easier for you in terms of time. You can also do this by hand as well. So you can sort of make the pastry by crumbing up the flour and butter and then adding the water gradually to make it into one sort of lump of
So for this, you are going to need 65 grams. Well, you're going to need 250 grams of unsalted butter, but the first part you're going to need 65 grams of unsalted butter, sort of cut up into little squares like this. You will need 250 grams of flour. Now I would recommend 125 grams of plain flour and 125 grams of bread flour for this, but you can just use plain flour if you don't have any bread flour. And you're also going to need 90 millilitres of water, and a good way to do this is to measure the water as a weight as well, which would be 90 grams of water. So first step, put your flour and butter into the mixer, and then put the lid on, and you're going to want to process this for a minute or so until it turns into what look like breadcrumbs. So when the mixture looks like a breadcrumb consistency, that's when you need to start gradually adding the water as you continue to mix. And you can see that as we've done this, it's created this kind of lumpy mixture. If you then take that out, it will bind together as you mix it together. You should then put it in the fridge for 30 minutes to cool down. So when you've got the mixture out, you're going to want to just kind of work it together as kind of one lump, and as I said, work it together and then put it into the fridge to kind of rest and cool for at least 30 minutes. And I wouldn't recommend that you put any flour down on your work surface for this one, because you don't want to add flour to this mixture really too much at this stage. But do make sure that as you're working it, it doesn't stick to the worktop. Be sure to wrap your pastry in cling film before you put it in the fridge so it doesn't dry out. So while you are waiting for that to cool, get the rest of your butter, which should be 185 grams, and ideally unsalted butter. You are going to place your butter between two pieces of greaseproof paper, and then using a rolling pin gradually flatten down the butter until it is about 1 centimetre thick. Try to keep the butter in an even shape, so in kind of an oblong or square shape if you can. And to help you do this, you're going to want to kind of press the rolling pin down rather than kind of rolling along it, and keep changing the direction you are doing this to gradually flatten that butter out. When you've got it to about the right thickness, you're going to want to try and even up the shape, and I'll show you how. The first step is to score down the middle lengthways and place the two sides overlapping one over the other, so your long straight edge is on the outside. And then flatten this down again so that it merges together as one piece of butter. So then you want to do the same, but this time going across the butter. So when you've shaped the butter, it should be roughly a kind of oblong shape, about 4 centimetres along and 6 centimetres up. And then probably put this in the fridge and wait until your 30 minutes is ready on your pastry. So when you get it out of the fridge, first thing you want to do is to knead and work the dough for a little bit, just to get it moving and to make sure it's all in kind of one piece and in good shape. So roll out the pastry, try to keep it in a reasonably oblong shape, and try to keep it moving. You might also want to put a little bit of flour underneath it to stop it from sticking, and keep sort of moving it and keep flipping over as you roll it out, and roll it out until it is roughly twice the length of the butter and about as wide as the piece of butter. So you then want to place the butter and then
close it over like a parcel and press down to seal up the edges, and try to press out any air that is in it. And once you have done that, you then want to roll it out until it is roughly 3 times the length it was when you started, and then you are simply going to fold it into thirds. And flatten it down, and then wrap it up in the same piece of cling film and put it back in the fridge for 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, take it out of the fridge again, turn it through 90 degrees, and then you want to roll it out until it is roughly 3 times the length it was when you started. And again, you then want to fold it up in thirds and put it back in the fridge for another 30 minutes. So again, turn it through 90 degrees and then roll out until it is roughly 3 times the length it was when you started. So you'll want to make your filling for your rolls. I'm going to use beef for mine, but if you want a more traditional roll, you could use minced pork, or indeed if you want a sort of vegetarian one, then you can use things like Quorn and so on. So it's important that you use mince, and you will also need to season it, and you will probably need to season it rather more than you would do if you were just going to eat it after you'd cooked it, because when things are cold, the seasoning tends to sort of fade into the background a bit, so you do need to make sure you season it a little bit more than perhaps you would do normally. So to mine, I've added some whole grain mustard, some Dijon mustard, and a good amount of salt and pepper. You can mix this up by hand. I'm going to use the food processor. So when you have done the roll and fold about between 3 and 5 times, you are now ready to roll out to make your sausage rolls. And for this amount of pastry, you are going to need about 500 grams of filling. So roll it out until it is about 2 to 3 millimeters thick, and then you are ready to add your filling. And what you want to do is try and put the filling down one sort of side, so you can then roll it over and wrap it up in. So when you have put the filling in, an even covering that fills up roughly a third of the pastry, you are then ready to roll it over. And you may just want to brush a little bit of egg white along the edge here to seal it. So then cut up your roll into roughly 8 or 9 evenly sized pieces and place on a baking tray. Make sure that you have preheated the oven to 180 degrees. Make sure you space them out nicely on the tray. You can then score the top of them, and if you want to, put an egg wash on top of them, and then put them in the oven for about 30 minutes or until they are lightly golden. So when they are a light golden brown after about 30 minutes, take them out of the oven and then go and take them to your dad to get him happy for Father's Day. So there we go, one happy father ready for Father's Day.
I say, Dad, these look wonderful. Let me just have a taste. Beautiful. Wonderful seasoning. Thank you, Ed.